All right, Nick, let's talk about the USC Trojans. Trojans, great offseason so far. A lot of really good moves. This team is moving in the right direction. But when we look at the future of this team, when we look at how it's going to look 1, 2, 3, 4 years from now, it's already looking really good, but it's gotten even better in this latest flurry of moves. The Trojans doing something really special. We'll get into that in just a second. But first, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I allude to, a big flurry of moves for the Trojans when we're regarding the future. Yes, we're talking about the 2026 recruiting cycle. Let's jump on into it, and then we can talk about it more on the other side. So I'm going to pull up 3 tweets from the Trojans because they've been extremely busy in the 2026 recruiting cycle. I'm going to go through them really quickly. First, all of these are from Hayes Fawcett at On3 Sports, a great follow for all recruiting news. He's always got all the up-to-date things, so go give him a follow. It says, breaking 4-star wide receiver Roderick Tazino Jr. has committed to USC. He tells me for out on the recruits, 6'2", 175-pound wide receiver from, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, Louisiana, chose the Trojans over Houston, Tulane, and Kentucky. Great choice. Secondly, breaking elite 2026 offensive tackle Kenyi Pepe has committed to USC. He tells me for out on through recruits, the 6'8", 330-pound offensive tackle from Long Beach, California, chose the Trojans over Miami, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Love that, as well as some great teams to beat out. And then finally, elite 2026 cornerback Albert Hill has committed to USC. He told me for on through recruits, the 5'10", 185-pound cornerback from Akron, Ohio, chose the Trojans over Ohio State, Oregon, and Alabama. How about teams to beat? That is really great. He's ranked as the number 1 recruit in Ohio and the number 4 cornerback in the country. Again, Trojans killing it in the recruiting game. The number 1 2026 class so far gets even stronger. These moves show they are dominating the future prospects. I really love what's going on here for USC. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But before we get to you, Trojans fans, in the comment section below, gave you a lot of recruits, a lot of guys that are committing for this 2026 class. Out of these 3 guys, let us know who's your favorite. Which one of these guys do you maybe think is the best contributor to this team? Is there somebody you just like for some reason? Let us know your thoughts on these 3 guys. Who do you like the best in the comment section below? But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest flurry of moves by the Trojans?
It's been a successful offseason for USC. We covered it. It was kind of a rocky start there at the beginning, but since that slow start, it's just gotten better and better and better. We talked about the potential of Albert Hill specifically, I believe, a week or so ago about him going to USC in terms of the Trojans beating out Ohio State and Oregon. And we talked about it at the time. Listen, there is a shift going on. The preeminent program in the West Coast, like it or not, Trojans fans, has been the Oregon Ducks for the last half decade or so. That is clearly and undeniably changing right now, right? There is a total vibe, total momentum shift. But what we're seeing out of USC is not just winning the West Coast. It's not just beating out Oregon, right? You talk about the Long Beach tackle, of course. You talk about Hill going from Ohio, beating out Oregon, beating out Ohio State. But we're seeing USC going into the deep of SEC country, going to Louisiana, SEC Sunbelt. So we're seeing USC all in one foul swoop win big-time competitive recruits in their conference, dominating locally and going into SEC country, right? This is incredibly difficult to do. One of the things we talk about all the time is that most programs, what they have to do to be successful, we recommend this strategy, is start local, branch out regional, like your conference, and then go national, right? You have to follow that model. Otherwise, your resources get spread too thin. The one exception for programs is those that have a national following, have a national brand, like Alabama was under Nick Saban, for example. When you're winning a national title, or it seems you're winning a national title every single season, you don't have to worry about, local, regional, national. You don't have to follow that hierarchy because everyone knows who you are. other national brands. Notre Dame's a prominent example of it, right? You don't have to worry so much about following the local regional, national model because everyone knows who you are. USC was like that for a very long time, but they have fallen off. To be totally honest, they've gone from being the preeminent or one of the preeminent programs in college football to, number 4 or 5 in their conference, right? They're not the best team on the West Coast. They haven't been. That's been Oregon. That has undeniably changed. And I think that is going to be, it's going to take a few years, right? This is not going to mean that USC is going to go, undefeated in 2025. They might, who knows? I think they're still a couple of years away from being phenomenal, but it shows that the trend is their friend. And people look at what happened, for example, going back to the Nick Saban Alabama situation when he first went to Tuscaloosa. It took a couple years. Now, he did a great job turning around the culture of the program, so they started winning a lot more, but it took a number of years for Alabama to become the dynasty. How come it took so long? Did Nick Saban suddenly become a better coach? No, it just takes about 4 or 5 years to do a great job resetting the recruiting game, figuring out all the pipelines, getting all that talent in, compounding recruiting win after recruiting win. And before you know it, you're a dynasty, right? That's what the Georgia Bulldogs, when they're going on their run, that's what they were like. They were a good team, good team, good team. And then bang, they're pretty much unbeatable just because it took about the 5-6 years or so, 4 or 5 6 years to build that incredible recruiting base and have, guys that you brought in as freshmen that were now seniors all the way down to new recruits coming in. USC and Lincoln Riley is in the middle of that right now. We're talking about 2026 kids here. So again, no one who's going to play for Trojans in 2025. A lot of these kids may not even get a lot of playing time next year in 2026. But USC fans, I know it's hard to be patient. And I think they're going to be good this year. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. Although almost by default, you think they'd have to be better. But if you look at the out years, if you look at the second half of this decade, there's no reason to think USC will not be the best team on the West Coast. There's no reason to think they can't win the Big Ten every year. There's no reason to think they can't make deep playoff runs every year. Lincoln Riley, Bowden, everyone involved with this organization right now is pushing this team in the right direction. They're developing deep, talented recruits across positions, both sides of the football, skill players up front, big guys, smart, cerebral, athletic, across the board, high-value recruits. You name it, USC is getting it done. Phenomenal job by the Trojans.
Yeah, Nick, I agree with what you say there. And I think it shows that if you see where USC has been at its best in the past, if we jump all the way back to 2023, that recruiting class, that was a good recruiting class. It was top 8 in the country. They did a lot of good things there. But what did they do? They focused on something we talk about on this channel a lot. They recruited locally first, and then they started to branch out and go nationally. 12 players out of the state of California there. But if we jump ahead, we go to 2024, they only got 7 players out of the state of California. That recruiting class jumped down dramatically to 17th. We're talking about a 10-point drop there. Instead of being a top 10 team, you're a top 20 team in recruiting. I don't think that's quite as good. 2025, decent class here. They're 14th, but only 4 guys out of the state of California. What do? They go back to their roots. They go back to when they were great. California, 14 guys out of the state of California so far in 2026, number 1 recruiting class. So it seems to me, trend shows the more they focused on the state of California, the better their recruiting classes get. Start in California, then branch out and get a couple of guys. Get guys like Xavier Griffin out of Georgia. Get guys like Pepe out of Florida that we just showed. I think this shows the Trojans, they've got it under control. Lincoln Riley going back to when his recruiting classes were best. When they focus on the state of California, I think we're seeing something special happening here with this recruiting class. But I just think overall, this shows they are doing a lot of great things. And then we talk about 2026. It's kind of far out there as far as this is early, but they've already got 26 guys signed in this class. So they're stockpiling guys. They're not slowing down. They're keeping their foot on the gas. I think this is going to be a great recruiting class for the Trojans. And what do you do when you have 26 guys? If it goes and you lose guys over time, you already have such a strong recruiting class. You're future-proofing it now. I know some people recruit guys early commits, and you never can truly quite tell what is going to happen with those players. But when you get a ton of good talent in a recruiting class, if you lose 1 or 2 along the way, it's not nearly as big of a deal. I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. Lincoln Riley learning from his mistakes, learning from I didn't focus on California enough. I didn't account for. Maybe I lose a lot of guys here and there at certain points of the transfer portal, of certain points of different recruiting milestones throughout that cycle. I need to make sure I focus on that. I need to make sure that I get that, taken care of. He's done that. We're seeing them already. Highest recruiting grade they've had in a long time. First overall, can't get much better than that when it comes to the recruiting class. So I think this team, something special is happening. I think they're really honing in their game. Lincoln Riley's been a strong recruiter offensively at the quarterback position for a very long time now, but now we're starting to see offensive tackles come in. We're starting to see corners, big defensive players come in, as we've covered in the last few videos we've done. And now we're seeing wide receiver skill positions as well. This team is rounding out well. Not only are they going to have great quarterback play, but they're going to have strong overall play as well. And I think this 2026 class is proof of just that.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on the framing of not focusing on California. And I don't think that's what it is. I think it's losing to Oregon. I think that's what we were seeing. Because obviously, give Dan Lanning up in Eugene a lot of credit. We talk about Dan Lanning all the time. He's a phenomenal coach, phenomenal recruiter. Credit where credit is due. I think what we saw from USC struggling recruiting-wise wasn't just, we're not going to focus on California or losing California to random teams. It's not like they were losing to UCLA. Right. It's because the Oregon Ducks had become a national power and were dominating the state the way the Trojans should be doing, the way the Trojans used to be doing. And I think that's what we've seen this shift this offseason of finally beating Oregon. Right. It's not just in the state, like I mentioned, it's the quarterback kill from Akron, Ohio. It's across the board, finally destroying Oregon in the recruiting game. And that's going to be what propels USC to long-term success. Because one of the things you can do, you can have a great transfer class cycle. You get a great transfer. Caleb Williams is a phenomenal example of that in recent memory, where you get a good player, you get a couple great players, and you're able to beat your rival one season. But you don't have a solid recruiting pipeline if you've lost to them consistently, which you brought up those recruiting class rankings, right? That's if you're the Trojans, right? Even top 8, that's not really what you would expect, right? You'd expect top 5 generally every year, top 3 a lot of years, certainly not outside the top 10. That is not going to get it done. But the fact that USC this offseason, of course, they made some changes at the top of the organization in terms of the general manager and how they handle recruiting. Now they are beating back Oregon. Now they're solidified into the Big Ten, and they're continuing their success on that recruiting department. If that can be continued, if they can build off this momentum, which no reason to think they can't, because that's what they've done the past 2, 3, 4, 5 months, then this Trojans team will eventually return to being at the top of the college football world. Now, like I said, will it happen in 2025? Probably not. They got a few years to go. But if you look at 2027, 28 timeframe, this is a team that's going to be stacked across the board. They're setting the foundation for it right now with these recruiting wins. And I think when we look back in the future and we say, wow, USC is back, what happened? We can point to this season as the starting point of them returning to their top of the college football landscape.